All right. Thank you, everybody. This is the January 2026, and that is weird saying that, installment of the Microsoft Data Platform Continuity Virtual Group. With me today are some of the most incredible individuals in the world, starting with Thomas Grohser, TG, uh, the man, the myth, the legend. We've also got some incredible folks in the SQL Server space, Rick Lowe and Chris Lumina. This is the next installment, and we're going to call this the new season of the SQL Server Truncated Icosahedron table. Today's topic is going to be ransomware. And I'll be frank, if you're in IT operations, you should be scared to death about this stuff, and it requires proper planning up front. You
Yeah.
can't just wait until it happens. So, with that, let's get rolling.
Yeah. So, hello everybody. Thomas. Nice and happy to be here. Um, if you want a 10-second summary, there is no perfect solution. So, okay, let's explain why. So what I don't want to do in this session is deal with how ransomware got into your company. Yeah, that's some other departments. The database department, it's not their job to prevent the company from not getting ransomware. Yeah. There's books about it, YouTube presentations, conference presentations about from how to avoid to get ransomware in, except for one thing that nobody talks about. Everybody talks about the ransomware that you get, you click on something on an email from a random strange criminal. Yeah, that sends emails to thousands of people and hopes that one of them is a domain admin and double clicks on every exe file that he gets mailed in. Yeah, that's fine. The problem is there is a much, much more dangerous way of ransomware that is done by either a disgruntled employee or a professional undercover agent that a competitor placed in your company. And if you actually have to protect against them, it gets really tricky, especially for SQL Server. Just imagine one of your fellow DBAs in your team is actually working for the other side. So he fully understands how the whole thing works and all that. And the other side that makes it a little bit more tricky on SQL Server is that there are two more layers where you can attack. Yeah, because you can attack the actual databases. Yeah. So normal ransomware attacks files that are stored somewhere. Yeah. It scans through all the files, encrypts them, and unless you pay, you're not getting the files back. Yeah. The problem is the nice thing about SQL Server, once SQL Server is running, this kind of ransomware can actually not attack SQL Server's data files. Because once a file is opened in SQL Server, external software cannot access the data files. It can only be the SQL Server process. The only moment where you have a problem is if you stop SQL Server. So every time you reboot your machine, when you patch them, uh, the ransomware can actually hit your databases in the traditional way. Yeah. But the sad part is, as people that know me, I'm usually trying to be evil and figure out what can harm SQL Server. So I own a stored procedure that is called ransomware, that when you run it, it basically takes over your machine in about 10 seconds. And depending 10 seconds to 1 minute, depending how many databases you have, takes about a minute if you have more than 10,000 databases. But if you have less than 10,000 databases, it takes me about a minute to take over your machine while it's running. And the next time you restart SQL Server, you need to insert coins to continue. I cannot make SQL Server immediately take over, but the next time you restart it, uh, it's over. Yeah? I will not publish that stored procedure. I've handed it over to Microsoft so they can hopefully at some point find a way to deal with it, but it's not going to be easy as all the ones that I find. So let's go layer by layer where ransomware can attack. We already said inside the database. Okay? You basically use SQL Server to things. Another point where you could actually attack is where ransomware could attack is if you use always encrypted. Always encrypted can actually be used to ransom your data that is encrypted. It's sad, but it's possible. Um, Again, Microsoft knows how it works, and they've partially removed one of the two culprits that enables it. One is gone. The other one is still there. We'll get there. Um, Second one is the database. There's features inside of SQL Server that allow you to encrypt the database. Just imagine someone does it that doesn't share the encryption key with you. Uh, and it's a background process that runs very efficiently, and nobody noticed that it's happening. Um, the next one would be to attack the actual data files on the file system, which could be locally. So your D drive, your E drive, your mount point, wherever the files are, that you could attack. Or a ransomware could try to hit these drives from the network. The problem is that most servers share each and every drive with an administrative share for each drive. And again, if ransomware figures out how to be an administrator, which unfortunately is not that hard, they can use that to get there. Lucky for us here is SQL Server, once it opens the file, no other application, the files are all exclusively opened, and as long as SQL Service is running, access to these files is impossible. The sad part is, for ransomware to be effective on a SQL Server database file, it only needs to encrypt about the first 64 kilobytes of the file, because if you don't have the first 8 pages, it's really tough to recover that database. Yeah. The good thing is here, even a 2 or 3 week old copy of these pages might be good enough to get you running again, because these pages don't change that often. Yeah, I'm not saying it will work, but it is possible to, like, if you only have a 3 week old backup or something, and you only need to replace like the first 8 kilobytes or so, because you have to look at ransomware and put your mindset into the guy who writes the ransomware, if they are a professional. Once you're a professionalist, you want to hit as many files as you can. So what you would do is you open each and every file and just encrypt like the first 8 kilobytes. So the first read you do from the disk. Yeah. You don't want to encrypt. Let's imagine someone has like a 30 terabyte database somewhere, and ransomware would hit that file first and then would spend the next 3 days encrypting that 30 terabyte file. Yeah, that's not efficient. There's thousands of other files that need to be done first. So what good ransomware, and with good, I mean evil ransomware, does is it encrypts a little bit of the file and then comes back later again and finishes the job. Okay, so we hit it inside the database, we hit it from the application, we hit it uh, on the data files through the file system. And now where it gets nasty. And this is where the disgruntled or the professional undercover uh, competitor guy comes in and is really nasty. Unfortunately, the file system, the drivers, the firmware on your RAID controller, the firmware on your hard drives, the firmware on your network cards, the firmware on your storage network adapters, and the firmware in your storage array all allow you to place ransomware as well. And that's the nastiest form you can have. So all these, the attack vector is exactly the same. You exchange the firmware, the driver, with something that when you write the data, you encrypt it, and when you read it back, you decrypt it. So you have weeks and months to encrypt the whole thing, and then one day you just delete your encryption key and ask for money. Yeah. And the problem with that is that works even on a SQL database that is not that is active, because SQL Server within the operating system it runs in ensures that the files are locked while SQL is running, but the underlying file system has complete open, there's no restrictions what the file system does, who it lets read and write and change the underlying data. Yeah, otherwise it would be impossible to have things like RAID or error correction and stuff like this going on. From a technical perspective, these layers need to be able to do that. Unfortunately, ransomware can use that in a very, very negative way to get there. Yeah? So where can ransomware hit you from? It's from within the SQL Server. So someone connects to SQL Server and is able to run commands there. That's one way to hit it. You are on You are locally on the machine. You're not inside SQL Server, but you're logged in into the machine via remote desktop or physically on the console. Just imagine ransomware gets installed in your data center by someone literally walking into the data center. Nothing easier than that. Ask the data center in one of the large data centers in Vienna. They had a contract with us that if we find a security breach, we don't have to pay for a month. The first 6 months were free. Let's put it this way. Uh, then they ask us to renegotiate the contract because they're like, you're gonna find this. Easiest way to actually get someone illegal in a data center, just mail them. Put them in a box and mail them into your cage. Uh, it's a good idea if you talk with the mailing company because you want to put your employee only like 5 minutes before in there and not like 3 or 5 days. But technically, yeah, and maybe not mailing but shipping in a big crate or something. Yeah, you give them a big battery and some Netflix downloads, and they can be happy on their way in. So, back thing is, so you can be on the machine, so you're on the operating system layer and can initiate it from there. And that's the same thing if you have ransomware that came in through some other mechanism. So it somehow started itself on the machine. It copied its exe file there and starts itself. So it doesn't matter if it's a human being or if it's a software that gets there and starts it there. Um, the next way is the ransomware comes in through the network. That doesn't mean it's different than you access through the network the machine and then run locally, or you just sit on some other machine and then use file share services or some other service to manipulate the files on the other machine. Yeah. And then you have the attack vectors where the ransomware gets placed inside your network switch or inside your storage array, storage switches, storage adapters, um, something like that. Or in if you have local drives in the RAID controllers or HBAs on your local machine. Yeah. Um, then one thing that opens a full nother can of worms is if you run in a virtualization environment where you have virtual machines. That also adds the layer that the attack is somewhere between the physical machine and the VM that then hosts the operating system. Same, of course, goes for all kinds of Docker or containers or Kubernetes or whatever is there. Yeah. Worst case scenario is you can someone has ransomware software that somehow can attack you on that layer. Yeah, just imagine VMware provides file services to the VMs. It literally provides the storage. Yeah, any storage driver that works for network can just encrypt and decrypt the data on the fly. The problem is machines today are so fast that you don't notice that encryption happens. Yeah, you might notice it and you can measure it. Yeah, but users, a file took 1 second to open and now it takes 2 seconds to open. Same with a query, it takes 2 seconds instead of 1 second. Will they probably complain at some point? Yeah, but they will not look at hey, this is because we decrypt and encrypt data. And if you look at a feature like transparent database encryption, I've never seen users that could actually tell that that feature was enabled or not. Yeah. Yes, during the initial encryption, yes, the machine, like every CPU in 100% till it's done, no question there. But once this is over, you could not tell the difference. Yeah, because decrypting stuff is actually pretty easy. Encryption is a little bit harder, and most encryption algorithms are written so that they decrypt much faster than they encrypt. Yeah. So this is the thing. So this is an overview where the ransomware can sit and what it tries to do. Yeah? The end goal is whatever data is there, make it unusable in a way that it can be made usable again. Because if it's just about making the data unusable, it's called a virus. It's not ransomware. Yeah, if it's a one-way street, then doesn't matter. Yeah? So, how can you protect yourself? Yeah. That's probably the question why everybody is here. Yeah. Uh, and the answer is it's not easy. Um, and you have to do a lot to actually get to a point where you can have some confidence that you will not lose all your data. Yeah. I've After doing this for about 20 years now, I'm with SQL for 30 years and dealt with requests from my employers and people that hired me about dealing with ransomware for about 20 years. So thing is, I have never found a way to guarantee zero data loss to ransomware. Yeah. Um, I can guarantee you up to 2 log backups maximum data loss. If you're willing to run highly trained DBAs 24/7 on site in front of the monitor. That means you need two of them because if one needs to go to the bathroom, the other one has to sit in front of the screen. And if anything happens within like 5 or 6 seconds, they need to do exactly what's necessary. And that will mean that you have to shut down services to protect the data. Yeah. The reason for that is that it's not easy to protect your backups. Full backups, differential backups, super easy. Yeah. So let's start with them before we deal with the log backup problem. So for full backups, the protection is very simple. The recommendation is that you have multiple backups and multiple different media, and one of them is offline. And that change, that one of them is offline, is what will protect you from ransomware. Yeah. Because if there is no way to get to the data, to get to the backup, uh, you can be pretty sure that the backup is not encrypted most of the time. We get to the nasty stuff later. So what you can do is, so first of all, you have to start and have two different locations where you back up to. Yeah, if you only have one location, one place, like one file share, and everything goes there, if ransomware can get there and encrypt those files, because ransomware will encrypt your database files and it will encrypt your backups. If it's a file, they encrypt it. Yeah, they don't care. If it's a configuration file, a data file, they don't care. They just go through. They don't even look at file extensions. They don't care. They encrypt everything. Yeah, they might have preferences with what they start, but it's database backups are very high on the list. Yeah, because usually the data inside databases has a certain value and therefore gets hit first. So if you only have one location where you can back up to, so one file share, there's pretty much nothing you can do. You can get lucky that they're not. There would be a great way of protecting the data there, but unfortunately, the network protocols that are used right now won't let you do that. Because a simple trick that would actually solve the problem is if you could share the same folder with two network shares, which you can do, but you need different permissions on them. One, you need read only, and on the other one, you need write only. And I haven't found any network sharing sans something that gives me a file system where I can write, where I can do write only. The trick part is if you have the two file shares, ransomware to encrypt it, it needs to read it and write it. And if there's only one way to, one can only read and the other one can only write, you could not do that. Unfortunately, that is right now not possible. Yeah, I've tried all kinds of workarounds. Unfortunately, the underlying storage systems are always clever enough to combine the permissions, and then in the end, you end up with be able to do both on both sides. Because the trick would be the write-only share, you you'd back up to and you restore from the other share. And ransomware, if it tries to go there through the network, it could not. It would still not help you if ransomware attacks the file system of your backup location. But if they can only hit it through the network, which most ransomware does, that would be a great way of doing. So that would make a single location a little bit safer. It's kind of security by obscurity, but it would be really good. But unfortunately, as of today, that's not possible. So you need at least two locations, two places. For practicality reasons, they should not be on the same physical location. So two data centers, two regions in the cloud, whatever is your preferred thing. And that's my recommendation. They should be on two different technologies. So if you have a Windows file server and you make a file share there, it's great. Then have the other one being a Linux machine that gives you a Samba share, Samba thingy to get it there, or have a NAS from EMC or any of the other great storage producers, and have go there directly because that eliminates a lot of possibility of if you have to attack two different file systems, it's already much harder. If you have to attack two different hardwares, it's much harder. Yeah, they should have different network cards from different manufacturers because then you cannot attack the driver of the network card on the uh, on the storage devices. So have them as independent as possible. I know this is an uphill battle because whoever runs storage wants to have everything in the same way because they want to do the same. It's just think about it. You want that all SQL servers run the same version of the same edition in the same configuration, and everybody wants backup and service windows are at the same time. Yeah, that's your ideal environment. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So you have to make compromises with that. So does your storage and hardware team and network team. They have to do that. Yeah? I get it. It's hard. It should be at least two different network paths that are physically not connected. Yeah. So you should have your normal network card in your server and then two backup network cards, and each one goes to the other server, to the other backup location, which might be in a different data center, but it physically should be a different connection. Yeah. And why I'm humming and honing around physical, for money saving reasons, network people like to use something called virtual LANs, where they split a physical switch into multiple virtual switch. That's not separate physical hardware. Yeah. If someone attacks the switch, they have you in both places. Yeah. So it's great, but that needs again, it depends how important your stuff is. You want to protect it or not. Yeah. I'm just telling you what me and a couple of other clever people came up with what could happen. Yeah. I'm not saying there is ransomware out there as of today that can do that or not. I'm just saying you everything that I'm talking here can be done. Yeah.
Keyword is plausible.
No, we tried it. We did it. We wrote and uploaded a new firmware to an storage array that we needed to test that if someone can actually hack that. Yeah. Was it a production array? No. But it was in a lab and in cooperation with the storage vendor and everything else to make sure they understand what the problem is. And I'm like, I do not expect you to have a solution tomorrow. Yeah. Which was a couple of years ago. But at some point, when you design and redesign your environment and whatever you do, try to find something that prevents that. Yeah. And lots of them went over to only running digitally signed code and all that. So people are trying to get better. So replacing a Windows driver in 2003 and 2008, well, all you had to do is copy a file. Yeah. Actually getting a Windows storage driver installed today, Uh, not that easy. Yeah, because you actually need a vendor certificate. So you have to register with Microsoft and you have to send them your ransomware so that they certify it that it's actually like working great and doesn't have a memory leak. And then they send it back to you, and then you can try to install it. Will they send it back to you? Yes. Will they figure out it's ransomware? No. But if someone finds your ransomware and you use it, they can tell you who it was. So you basically have your name now written on your ransomware. So if you are that typical ransomware guy, that can get very expensive in years spent in confined rooms. Uh, so backup to locations, hardware, software configuration as different as possible. Even the names of the shares should be different. Don't call them both the same way. And don't call one backup one and the other one backup two. Ransomware is clever. If there's a backup one, they try backup two. If they can't find it, they try a three, four, five, six, seven. It's the same with password cracking software. They got really good in like figuring out how people think and just guessing names and stuff like this. Um, so the problem is you still have both connections. So if the ransomware sits on your SQL Server, it can see both backup locations. The only way to deal with that is to actually, once you, like every 24 hours, to disconnect one of the two backup locations from the network. Yeah. So the process is basically you have backup server A and backup server B. On Monday, you back up the backup server A and you're fine. At the end of the day, um, you turn off the network connection to network server A. You don't turn on the network connection to server B yet. And then you verify the backups on server B locally on the backup server or through a second machine that can still get there. Yeah. But your normal machines cannot. Once you know that the backup is actually good, then you turn on the other machine because now you know that you have a good backup. Then you turn on B, you do your backups in B. At the end, you take that one offline, you verify it, and you switch back and forth. So that means within a 24-hour cycle, you must be able to do the backup, do the enabling, disabling, which is usually just a couple of minutes. But you have to coordinate it with all the other machines because you're probably not going to have a backup server per database server. But if your largest one can do like an 8-hour backup, you're fine. And then do the restore test. Yeah. So that works fine. Yeah. Would I do it with two if money is not an option? No, I would do it with three because that always gives me the possibility that if one of them takes longer, so for whatever reason, someone didn't pay attention or did some stupid command on a clustered column store and made the data 50 times larger than it needs to be, uh, the backups will still finish, and I have like one more cycle as a buffer zone. And I'm a fan of three anyway, because one is none, two is one, and I want at least two. So technically I need three to start with. Um, so that's the full backups. Yeah. So pretty easy thing is, yeah. The problem is same goes for differential backups. Yeah. It's just usually the frequency is much higher that you do differential backups. So you might want to do the cycle like 3 times a day, 4 times a day. Or if you're on a weekly cycle, you do the full backups on the weekend and then do the differentials every day. The nice thing about differentials, you only need the last one. You don't need all of them. And this is where the log backups come in. You cannot alternate the location of log backups because you need each and every one of them. Yeah. So if you copy, if you do the first log backup on backup server A and then the next one on B, and then you swap around, um, if one of them gets infected, every other log file backup is not usable anymore, and you cannot deal with it or use it anymore to restore. Um, the other thing is uh, once you have there's a feature inside SQL that you can back up to more than one location at the same time. So when you do backup database or backup log, you can two and you specify, and then you can mirror two and specify another location. This is a great feature. It doesn't work as you expect it to work. So it only works, it's either successful if both backups write successful, or it's not successful at all. And this is what makes it a little bit dangerous, because if you have like one of the locations in your data center, the other one is in the other data center, and you have a little bit of a wonky network, it will fail a lot and endanger your local backups, which are much more important. So the chances of getting ransomware are much, much, much lower than having a regular reason to restore. Yeah. So you will have thousands of reasons to restore in your life and your career, and then you have maybe one ransomware incident. Um, unless you work for like really high profile companies that have uh, are known to be targets of these attacks. Um, but you cannot build a system that makes your normal recovery procedures less safe. Yeah. So, so, and this is where I said I haven't found a solution yet to make log backups guaranteed that the last log backup is okay. Because the way I protect log backups actually is by doing log shipping. So that means log shipping, for all of you that are young and don't know, that was the thing you used before always on availability groups, before database mirroring. You use log shipping. It was basically an automated way of taking log backups and restoring them on another machine. This stuff works today, still works. And the nice thing is, it works in parallel with database mirroring and always on availability groups and distributed availability groups and contained availability group. Doesn't matter. Log shipping still works. Yeah. They never broke that. Yeah. It's sensational that Microsoft did not ever break that, but still the case. So log shipping works. And the advantage of that is, so you take the log backup, then you have a copy operation that is free, which allows you to copy it to a second location, and then you restore it. So if you make the connection between your backup locations where you copy the backup, the log files between the two locations, absolutely private to the two storage servers, you can protect yourself from ransomware that is placed somewhere else in the network. If the ransomware makes it to your storage, to the place where you store your backups and runs locally on that machine, it doesn't help. But that's very, very unlikely, because this is a machine where normally nobody logs in. There's you have very, very little. There's no reason for anybody to ever be there, a local administrator. You can even like ensure that local administrators cannot log in onto the machine. Yeah, Windows NT Active Directory can do that. You can prevent administrators from logging into a machine. Um, so having that, so you're copying to the one machine. You use the copy process of log shipping to copy this to another location through the private connection, and then you restore it on the other one. Yeah. So what happens is you write the file, ransomware hits it, encrypts it, and you copy it over. So you get already the encrypted file over and you try to restore it and you immediately know something's broken. And that's why I said you will lose the last two log backups because you lost the one that you just have and you lost everything after that. Because now you know you have ransomware in your system and you can't take any more backups because it will most likely hit you wherever wherever it is. Yeah, but all the other files, if the restore was successful, are good. Even, and that's the beauty of it, if ransomware progresses in your environment and somehow finds its way to that second backup file, the machine that restored the database still has a good copy. And this is where you need the really good people because to get that one working again, you literally have to like shut it down or not even shut it down. You have to disconnect it from power as the procedure. Uh, then move it in a completely air-gapped environment. Air-gapped environment is something that has no network connection, no nothing. Um, Probably what I would do is I would clone every hard drive before I proceed. There's things where you plug in the hard drives and they make a raw copy of whatever is there. So if the ransomware is actually on that restore SQL Server as well to prevent that. Um, and then you have a copy of the database. So even if your primary machine was somehow compromised, your backups are compromised, the restore is not. And one of the tricks to get there is to run that log shipping machine with completely different permissions. So use your SQL Server service account and manage group accounts and whatever. On that other machine where you log ship, you use a local account, not an Active Directory. Yeah. There are no users defined on that machine. Yeah. You have like one sysadmin user or something, but nobody has a password for it. That thing is not used. Yeah. If you have to do something, you have a power user that goes there that has all the permissions to do the restores and fix stuff, but your completely thing is so that machine, even if someone figured out how to be a domain admin, that machine would not be able to be attacked in your environment. And that can, as I said it, about two log backup cycles if you have people working there and immediately can follow protocols, what to do and how to get that thing completely separated. Because once your environment is infected, the longer it runs, the more infected it gets. Yeah. So the only way to contain it and start from fresh is to have procedures in place to take the most likely not infected copy of your data and start from scratch because you will not be able to run after the ransomware. Yeah, because usually if that thing starts, unless you can work all the machines at the same time, it's not going to happen. But again, that's topic of InfoSec talks and security people that deal with operating system security. They have probably some different opinions there. But for me, this is the way it is. The problem, what I told you right now is you need the space to have at least like three, four copies. You need four, five, six times the space of your databases to have all the backups. Yeah. And I understand that not every company is willing to pay that much. Yeah? And it's understandable. The question is, do you need all your databases? Yeah. So I worked in environments with petabytes of databases, but once you actually investigated what is necessary for the company to survive, you're usually pretty quite down to a couple of terabytes. Yeah. This is not, a lot of data is for convenience. Yeah. Is it great to have the information of every click every customer ever did on your website and figure out what they like and they don't like? Of course. Yeah. I mean, I fully get it. Yeah. I love that shopping sites tell me exactly what I need to buy. Yeah. Uh, but do you need that to survive? If you have this worst case scenario. And again, ransomware is not something that happens every day. The problem is if it happens, it's usually catastrophic. Yeah. The problem is a normal virus is done by a crazy person. Yeah. Someone who wants to destroy. Yeah. But they don't have they don't have personal motivation. Ransomware is usually done by an organization. That means some very criminal mind somehow convinced a very technology mind that is willing to ignore the criminality of the other person and writes that for them. Because once you're as clever that you can actually write ransomware, you don't have to do it. You can make money way, way easier without the threat of jail. Yeah. But some criminal organization, so they have financial interest. And once financial interest is there, it's amazing how much energy and how much effort is put into that. Yeah. And they learn from the mistakes. Yeah. Every generation is a little bit cleverer than the one before. Yeah. And modern technology makes it easier and easier for them. Yeah. When I started, a virus had to fit into 512 bytes of a boot sector of a floppy disk. Yeah. So whatever you want to do, you have 512 bytes. And that's not a lot. But modern ransomware, couple of megabytes attachment, a link to a download of a couple of gigabytes. Yeah. You can pack multiple operating systems into a gigabyte today. Yeah. You can put thousands of drivers in a gigabyte. Yeah. So you have thousands of driver replacements that all work there. You queue them up on your servers. You wait for the next patch. A couple of them will be patched and will be overwritten by new versions, but lots of them will not be because not everything gets patched every time. And then your ransomware is already up and running. If your ransomware is clever, they have version numbers that are 10,000 times higher than the current ones, and then they don't get replaced. Yeah. One other thing that in one place we tried, I will mention for more entertainment than for practical use. You can actually use SQL Server to back up logs into SQL Server databases. Yeah. Uh, it's the most inefficient way to do your backups, but technically it allows you, if you then use availability groups to multiply these databases to multiple locations, you can actually use that. So what's the feature? The feature is called file stream. So you can actually have, you always could store file stream data, which is basically big files inside SQL Server where they're not stored in a blob, but they're actually stored inside the database in a special folder um, as regular files. Yeah. And what you can do is you can take your backups and this file stream, you can actually create a file share inside of SQL Server that exposes that file stream table. So the way you access the table now is you have a file share, and when you copy a file in there, it just creates a new row with that file in it. And you can use that to dump your log backups into that file share. And then they get copied to another machine where you can then copy them out. It's a very efficient way of moving the files. It's super inefficient from a storage perspective. It's super inefficient from anything. And it has the problem is that your log backups cannot be larger than 64 gigabytes. Sorry, 64 128 gigabytes because you can only have 64 files and there's still a 2 gigabyte file size limit. on these files. Yeah? They're not stored as blobs. They're stored as regular files, which takes up less space than storing them as a blob. Um, is it a good idea? No. Technically possible? Yes. Was it fun to figure it out? Yes. We stopped after using cascaded distributed availability groups to push it further. It works, but it's really funny. Thing is, the main reason we stopped exploring it was just too error prone. Your log backup solution, as I said before, needs to work for regular cases, not for the ransomware cases. If you've come up with something that protects you from ransomware, but then prevents you from doing regular restores, you did not solve the problem. Sorry. So, um, other ways of doing this is using immutable storage. So that helps you that you can only, there are storage arrays that have write only modes where you can write the file once, but then never modify it. So any kind of ransomware that after you write the file tries to encrypt it will fail, except if the ransomware hits the storage array where it's stored. Immutable storage is also available in the cloud. It's actually hilariously available because technically it's not immutable. It when you set that flag, it and you modify the file, they just don't delete the old version. So the hilarious part is you have the ransomware version and then the regular version. Uh, and then you just go to the old version and you still have it. Um, Same problem here. What if the ransomware attack is not on your environment, but on the cloud service? Yeah. Again, cloud is just someone else's computer. It's Yeah. And if I want to get some real big ransomware, if I would be the bad guy, I would work on the cloud because if I can hit 1 million customers in one go, much more efficient than hitting one. Um, yes, yeah. Other things that we played around with, we tried physical network disconnections. So we basically built network cables with a mechanical switch in the middle where we literally disconnected the cables. Problem is that limits you to very low network speeds because usually these uh, connect disconnect relays are not designed to run high frequency, very low voltage signals across them, and they're very bad when it comes to insulation and shielding from each other. But it was a nice idea and the part made it easier because you didn't have to deal with the network team to actually do the switch port enable and disable. I mean, it's literally one line of code in a Cisco switch to enable and disable the port. And the two commands literally different by 3 characters. Yeah. Because in Cisco, whatever you do, when you want to do the opposite, you write the word no in front of it. So if you want to enable the port, that's the enable port, and then no, not enable port, basically. Or, or add IP address or not add IP address, and then which removes it. It's a little bit tedious, but honestly, it makes it really easy because you don't have to remember what the other command is. Yeah, it's always put a couple of letters in front of it and make it happen. Yeah. How many times did you have to think on SQL what is the opposite of create? Yeah, it's drop because honestly, you very rarely drop a table. Yeah, you insert millions of rows, you create a few tables, and you probably drop a handful in a production environment. Yeah, I know exceptions, blah blah blah. Yeah, but as a thing is, yeah? So. Yeah. So these are my 2 cents on ransomware. Um, it's to summarize it, protecting full backups, relatively easy. Put them on two as different backup locations as you can and alternate and turn them off. So only one of them is active at a time. I know that makes restoring a nightmare. But don't forget, you still have the other one that there's except for the brief period where you verify, and this is why I go to three, because if I have three, one is writing, one is verifying, one is ready, one is protected. Yep. So that's why I have three. Uh, you can restore from the other one. Yep. It's just I know people in their test environments always need the newest data and something like this, but then a good place to test the log backups of the last 24 hours again, or some differential backup on top of it, or something like this. But and this is a priority, ransomware or convenience for whoever runs the environment. Yeah? And once you run ransomware protection, convenience is pretty much out of the window. Yeah? But okay, two different locations for the full backups, one or three better. One of them is at one point in time, one of them is always physically not reachable. Yeah. Log backups, again, more than one location, back up to one location, and then use a private connection between the two locations to copy the data and restore it from the other side to a separate machine that again is not connected to the regular network. Yeah. It's a lot of networks, and your network team will yell and they will scream, and it's fine. Um, Depending what kind of bribe they take. I know in Europe, beer always works. And in the US, a couple of burgers, steaks, and something will fine because if I remember correctly, drinking beer during the day in a company is not a real like something you should do. In Europe, we're fine. Uh,
I tend to swap them up with the offers of red meat, and that usually works pretty
yeah,
well.
no, no, not every company, but it's thing is, yeah. And inside SQL Server, yeah, it's fun. Make sure that your system databases are nicely backed up because let me put it this way, everything that inside SQL Server and ransomware is usually related to encryption keys or asymmetric certificates. Yeah. And the problem is swapping out an asymmetric certificate takes microseconds. But if you do that, that might make a database completely unusable. Yeah. And yeah, so everybody who has dealt with transparent database encryption and all the steps that are necessary to get one of these databases restored on a new machine. Well, it's not just you can't restore it on another machine. You have to first install all the certificates and everything so that you can do that. And basically, that's the same thing that would happen in a ransomware attack. Doesn't matter if it does it through uh, which mechanism it uses. If it uses always encrypted, or thing is another way of sneaking ransomware in is would be hijacking stored procedures that encrypt data. Lots of applications do data encryption on the SQL layer where the data comes in plain text, but then SQL writes it encrypted into the tables. And when the application asks for it back, it decrypts it on the SQL server side. Basically, the manual process of what always encrypted oops, does automatically for you. Yeah. So that layer, um, yeah, yeah, it's a nightmare. I hope everybody can sleep well tonight. I know I do because I'm known about this stuff for many years now, and every time I discuss this with new people or a new company, new ideas come up or new nightmares how it can happen. Yeah. And the ransomware that comes in through an email and someone clicks on it, yeah, that one you can usually protect pretty good. Yeah, because if any desktop account that can read email can access the file system on your SQL servers, you probably should be pushed out of business by ransomware. Yeah, because it's not worth the whole thing. Yeah, it's the account you work on your desktop should not have any access on your production environment. Yeah, you need to go to a production environment, your remote desktop there, and you use your elevated account. And I'm saying elevated account. That account should not be local administrator, and that account should not be sysadmin. That should just allow you to do more. And then there should be a third account where you need at least one other person to get the permission to use it. And um, Chris will can testify to that. It's annoying, but it works. We worked in the same company and had to get these passwords together. But in modern days, 99% of all work on SQL Server can be done without being sysadmin. Yeah, you can be a Power DBA or whatever fancy group is. Microsoft hasn't created one out of the box, which I really hate, but you can still do it. There's still things that you need to be sysadmin to do it. Yeah, and it's super annoying. Yeah, but with every version since 2016, that number went down. This is one of the things nobody ever talks. It's Bob Ward in his what they called SQL Server 20 something revealed. He gives it basically one paragraph. Yeah, in some chapter that, oh yeah, we cleaned up the permissions here and there. Yeah. And what does it mean is it means that now that functionality is a separate permission that you can grant someone without being sysadmin. So like DBCC page, yeah, is one of the few you still need to be sysadmin to do that, which is super annoying. Yeah. Why can't you grant me that command by itself? Yeah. Or DBCC log info. Another super annoying one. Yeah. The reason why all backup software needs to be sysadmin is because they need that fucking command. Sorry for the F-bomb, but uh, it's so far deep in the video that YouTube will not find it. Uh,
If
hey,
they complain, I'll deal with that. You don't have to worry about it. Speak for yourself, man.
no, it's there's a lot of things that thing is, and I said we're not going to discuss how to prevent ransomware from getting into your company, but you can do a lot to make sure it doesn't hit your database servers. Yeah? You can have the best database team in the world, and then the team that runs Active Directory, everybody's domain admin, and they use that account to read their emails. Um, yeah. And I must honestly say, I also clicked on links in emails and then went to security training. Yeah. I I admit that. I spot a lot of phishing emails and I spot a lot of thing, but twice I got caught and I attended the training and everything. Yeah. Not that I learned anything new there, but I understand that I could have been more careful. And it was in both situations, it was a high stress environment, and the email fitted perfect into a scenario uh, that happened at the same time. One was in my personal email, I was mailing back and forth with a bank about my credit card. And then I got an email on my company account about some crap about a credit card. And I was like, what the F is wrong with them again? And I clicked on the link. And then it just opened the invite to security training. Yeah. Uh, but still, it's what I'm saying is nobody's perfect. Yeah. But if my regular account that I read email, all it can do is read email and access my personal documents and my team documents and the general documents of the company, yeah, not much can happen. Can ransomware then attack all these files? Yes. Yeah. But the nice thing about this is backups of regular files are much easier to recover. Yeah. Because even if like the Word documents are now 2 or 3 days old, that's not the end of the company. Yeah. The problem is if 1 kilobyte in your data in your 50 terabyte database is wrong, uh, it doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And so that's the difference. Yeah. If you have a million Word documents and 10 of them are not recoverable, yeah, someone has to type them again. Yeah. Or nobody will even notice. Yeah. Because the chances are, yeah. Back to immutable storage. It's available from pretty much every cloud provider. It's available from most storage solution providers. They have something. There's actually physically unimmutable hardware. This is like optical disks that you can physically actually only write once, and there is no way of going over that. Most others use some software solution that is only as good as that software is. I used the one that from the cloud provider that also delivers packages to your home. Um, and it works. It's just if for whatever reason you actually need to delete the file, it's a very costly process because the way to actually make it so that it cannot be deleted, overwritten, or modified needs something they call a legal lock. And the only way that you can delete a file with a legal lock on it is if you, as the customer and Amazon, send a lawyer to a judge and the judge says, delete that file. Yeah. It's about a 10-second operation in front of the judge, but it might take a couple of weeks to get the appointment. And it will cost you thousands of dollars to send the lawyers because your lawyer might be cheap. The one from the package delivery company is not. Yeah. I know that Microsoft was thinking about doing something like this, but I'm currently not aware if they actually finished it or not. They claim to have immutable storage in their managed services, but you have to be very careful what immutable means. Because if immutable means you can't delete it with the same account, but there is a master account where you can delete it, it's not immutable. Yeah? If ransomware figures out how to attack your cloud account, it will figure out all the cloud accounts. Because there's a chance that they're not going to do it on your local machine. There's a chance they're going to do it on the network. And when they do it on the network, they can figure out all your passwords before you get there. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. And of course, testing your backups and making sure you have them is always a good thing. But remember, the testing has to be on a machine that is not connected to the regular thing. Is because if your primary machine and your DR and HA machines can be attacked, your backup test machine can be attacked too. But if it's on a different network that is physically completely separated, it's much, much harder. And just imagine you have your SQL running on a Windows, and then your backup filer is running on Linux. And then your second backup file is running on NetBSD. And then your restore test machine is running on a different version of Windows. Yep. Like one is running on the x68 and the other one is running on an ARM version or something, and they restore. So whoever writes the ransomware needs now something that can jump 4 hoops and change the operating system 4 times. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. Yeah? This is where you use probability to lower the chances of it happening to so low than it is. And even if you don't have ARM hardware, yeah, run the machine that restores all the things, run it on a desktop version of Windows, and the other one on the server version. Yeah. Um, Change the language of the operating system. Yeah. Run one in English and the other one in Brazilian or in Spanish. Yeah. You will find employees that speak both languages. Yeah. Or I would choose the other one in German. Yeah. It's a nightmare. You don't understand any error messages anymore, but it's fine. It's available. No, the trick is make it as hard as possible. If it if it doesn't prevent you from completely prevents it from doing it, but at least it will slow it down. Yeah. It might need to pull some updates, or it has to radio home and tell them, hey, there's an operating system I don't know. Here's the signature. Yeah. And then the guy has to update the code. Yeah. And modern ransomware can do that. Yeah? And the dangerous one, if you get ransomware that comes in and starts encrypting all the files and everything goes corrupt within 5 seconds, and thing is, that's the harmless one. Yeah, that you will figure out quickly, and it's probably so stupid that it crashes the machines, and then it dies itself out. Yeah. Dangerous is the one that installs itself in file system drivers, network drivers, storage array drivers, and then runs for months and months before actually attacking. Because the hard part is you need all the data encrypted, and encryption takes a while. Yeah? The small company that has a couple of terabytes, that's a different story. Yeah, you can probably encrypt that well, like overnight or something. Yeah, the big enterprise that has multiple petabytes, that takes days to sift through that. Ask anybody who has ever done a backup of that amount of data. Yeah, that is not a simple operation. Yeah, and yeah, and be aware, ransomware might not come from the outside; it might come from someone inside, which is much more likely. Because, yeah, as I said, disgruntled employee or someone planted by the competition, and it's so yeah, that's all I had. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer them.
Yeah, I've got one extra little nugget here. Um, Go back to your management and talk to them about, again, throw away the technology. What are their plans if they actually get hit by this stuff? There are a lot of companies that I work with where their plan is to pay the ransom and assume that everything will decrypt properly. I've had to pick up the pieces of two different shops. The SQL servers got hit, the databases and the files got encrypted. They did not decrypt properly. And guess what? Game over. Ask me how I know this, and ask me how it ruined U.S. Thanksgiving 4 years ago. Instead of spending that with family, I spent about 18 hours trying to decrypt a database table or a database and clean it up, and I ended up recovering 7 of 700 tables. The database was totally unusable. As a company, they had to roll back to a database that was 3.5 weeks old, and they ended up hiring about 800 day laborers for a month after that to count products in their warehouse to figure out how much they actually had to sell. And that was as catastrophic as you can get without them going out of business. So just stress to them,
And
paying a
ransomware
ransom.
becomes a virus. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Ransomware is not guaranteed to decrypt properly. So
And it might not even be the problem of the ransomware. It might be that you paid too early because it wasn't finished encrypting everything, and now it started decrypting everything and then decrypted the non-encrypted part.
yeah,
Yeah, stuff like this.
yeah, it's frightening
Or the
stuff.
algorithm is just bad and it was a non-reversible encryption because their encryption algorithms can't be, it has to be fast. So it can't be really deep. So they have to compromise. Yeah? Thing is, yeah, the plan can be. Or I worked in a company where every day they brought us a laptop and we copied a couple of terabytes onto that laptop of backups, manually checked that everything was fine, disconnected the laptop, and then some C-level manager came in, grabbed the laptop, and disappeared. And we never saw the laptop again. And our understanding was whatever is on that laptop is necessary to restart the company from scratch. Yeah, there were folders with documents, and there were a couple of small databases and backups of databases, and yeah, it's fine. Was this probably a $3,000 laptop per day? Yeah. But again, compared to probably what you have to pay an insurance company to thing is cheap thing. And pretty sure after a couple of months they found some use for these laptops, yeah. Or not. There might be basements full of laptops somewhere. I don't know. Either one is possible.
Still cheaper than
Yeah.
restarting and rebuilding your entire business.
Oh yeah, no. And this is when we're talking billion-dollar companies. Yeah. This
E-
is not.
Even even over here, I have 100 terabyte NAS in my house that
Yeah.
turns itself on in the morning, and I get a full secondary copy of a bunch of important stuff, and then it turns itself off. And then I've
Yeah.
got extra copies on literally just like what you just showed, a couple of disks on my
Yeah.
desk here. I have tertiary copies for my backups just in case.
Every line of code I've ever written is just one of the three things. One is in my fireproof safe. One is connected, not connected, but connected while I take the backups. But other thing, one is on the desk and one is in a safe deposit box at the bank.
Yep,
And every week I rotate. Yeah,
you have to.
yeah, no. And
But
when I
the
travel, I'll take one of them with me, just in case. Yeah.
yeah, the data is the most important part of just about every company out there.
Is this my only backup? No.
No,
Yeah. I have a copy in the cloud. I have a copy on at least three different laptops. I have one on my storage array. But it's yeah, and yeah, it's easy for me. That's a couple of terabytes, but still, it's and I know a company many years ago, more than 30 years. This was like in the very early days of SQL Server. Their IT person every week came with a USB hard drive that he had at home and swapped it out with the one in the office. Yeah, and the owner of the company trusted him that he's not going to do something stupid with it. But yeah, and yeah, but that's one was their thing is if ever that office burns down or something, that was their way of thing. Yeah? And like once or so a year, they handed the hard drive to me and said, "Hey, can you run a test that we can recover from that to make sure that we have everything that we need?" Yeah,
yep,
and
it's business continuity.
hmm,
If you don't test your backups,
they
you don't have
usually
backups.
combined it with like migrating to the new server. So instead of migrating, they took a backup of the old one and used that to restore on the new one, and then knew that everything's on the new server.
That works.
Oh yeah, clever company. Yeah.
Hmm.
Not an IT company, not a
Yeah, they didn't.
financial company, a clever
Yeah,
company.
yeah, they didn't over engineer it.
Nope. They had very simple ideas, yeah, and they worked. Yeah.
Simple and works are good. Simple and doesn't work is not good, but simple and works.
And trust me, they make way more money than all of us combined.
Does anybody have any questions? And if so, please come off mute and go for it.
Everybody's asleep. We
Yeah,
did it again.
it's a, what, you blow
I'm
everybody's mind
asleep.
every single time. So go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm just saying, I'm not asleep.
No. Yeah, good. Hey, it's a short one. Only 2 hours.
Works for me. It's a hard topic because there's not a lot of great options out there.
Again, the awesome solution would be to have the ability to have a file share on the same folder with two different permission sets where I have full control over the permission sets. If you look at NTFS, I could do it. So I could have two folders and one, I can only write the file, but I cannot list the files. I cannot modify the files, things. So perfect to dump a backup. Yeah, write only. And I can make an NTFS permission that I can only list and read the files and maybe delete. Yeah, but there might be a third folder for the deletes.
Have you proposed that to Microsoft to actually
Yes.
enforce? What do they say?
Yes.
Do they just kind of laugh?
Just take your backups to the cloud. You know Microsoft, they're not doing anything on the ground anymore.
So when are you going to write your own file system to accommodate this?
It's not the file system, it's
Oh,
the
permission
SMP
layer
share.
on. Well, it's permission layer
The
on
file
top of it.
system can do it. The file system can do it. The problem is on the file system, I would need two different accounts. So if I use the nice part was inside SQL Server that runs on the one account, all backups are done with the account that SQL Server runs on. So that account, that service account that runs SQL Server needs permission on the file share. And I can take backups to the write share. That is literally my backup file slash write. And then when I need to restore, I go to the read share, but I can use the same account. You cannot swap the account. Yeah.
So
Trust me, we
instead
did
of,
even try stupid things with having the two sides of an AG with different accounts. So restore would only go like on the even servers.
oh,
And
wow,
yeah, you come up with stupid ideas to implement stuff.
that's not stupid. So now when are we going to, instead of CIFS, when are we going to see TGFS to create your
No.
own CIFS layer on top of it?
I'm not a software developer. I can write code, but the problem with the code I write is that if developers see it, they pull their hair out. I learned writing code in the 1980s and 90s, and I still write code the same way. It works. It does whatever it has to do. The problem is,
Come on, but if you're not making a developer cry at least weekly, are we really doing our jobs properly?
no, it's no, it's I love it if I work in a company where I write the prototype and then I give it to the developer, he loses a couple of hairs and then rewrites it in a way that it actually does operate the way it works. Um, but it's and I think I'm too old for that. But hey, I will not stop bugging Microsoft with that. And I got used to that. It takes about 15 years. If you give an idea to Microsoft, it takes about 15 years to make it into the product. It's what it is. Hey,
Yeah.
the prime example, I submitted a change request, so these improvement requests on the beta version of SQL 2005. When they introduced database mirroring, I told them you have the high performance mode and you have the high security mode, the high safety mode, and the high performance mode. You're missing one. You're missing the zero data loss mode. And they're like, oh, yeah, you're right. Because synchronous, and even with AGs, I'm like, yeah, they were going to fix it in AGs, and it's called now synchronous and async. And then you look at synchronous, and no, it's not. It's still not zero data loss.
Yep.
But then comes SQL 2017, so 12 years later, 12, 13 years later, they finally created an option that you can now have synchronous copy with a minimum commit count. And that allows you to make sure that the data is actually on the secondary side. It's a feature that probably 99% of the people have no idea exists because, again, it's one of the things that are footnote in the release document.
Yep.
It's a major great feature, and a handful of people were celebrating for like a week that it's finally here. Yeah, but that's what it is. Yeah, it's probably 10 lines of code inside SQL Server. It's not that hard to implement that. Yeah, they had everything there. It just needed to be there and took them probably an hour to implement it and then 6 months to write the documentation and test it. But they finally got it in, and that's how things work. Every version, these little things sneak into the product. Yeah. Yeah. Some of them get a little bit more attention. Let's look at regex or something. How many decades took it for that super feature? I mean, I think I've seen regex custom implementation on SQL 2000,
Hmm.
where people wrote C++ extended stored procedures to have regex.
Yep.
Yeah. A nightmare. Yeah. Data corruption every other day because you overwrote some memory inside SQL Server because there were no boundaries. Yeah. Then in 2005, yeah, people did it in CLR. And then we figured out, oh, CLR is not safe. So we have to turn it off everywhere. Yeah. And finally, SQL 2025, about 30 years later, regex finally made it into the product after the first person cried for it. Yeah, sometimes things take a time. Yeah, and it's let's hope that the people that make that happen don't retire for a long time. Because whatever is the next generation, they don't even understand why these things are necessary. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. I'm fearing the day that Bob Ward is ever thinking about retirement. Right now, he's getting some of these features into every version. Yeah, I mean, I
At
wish
at
it would
that
be more. No
at
question.
that point, I'm gonna go pull a Jeremiah Peshka and go build furniture or something, because that'd be awesome.
IKEA is always hiring, so
I like woodworking.
there's no woodworking in IKEA.
Oh, I know. No, it's particle board
It's more
working.
like
Just
origami paper
assembly.
folding.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Say just assembly. Make a
Exactly.
lot of money being an assembler for
Yep.
IKEA.
Why not?
Uh,
It's a as long as you ignore the instructions, you're fine.
You can build many hours that way. Build many hours.
Oh yeah. No, maybe I use the same shelf system for like 15 years now. So I probably just know how they are built, but I haven't looked at an instruction for like 10 years. They're all the same. But yeah, no. Anyway, yeah. So I hope nobody gets ever has to deal with ransomware. It's most of the work with ransomware is write the paperwork, write the procedures, how to deal with it, and have management sign off on it. How much of that, how much are they willing to lose? And you would be surprised that most companies can easily actually survive losing a whole day or something. Yeah, because if you can lose a whole day, you don't have to worry about a solution for your log backups. Just make sure your full backups are fine.
yep. Order of magnitude easier. It's still not easy, but it's easier.
Yeah, no, full backups, it's just money. You need multiple locations. That's a money problem, yeah, which
Yep.
is, I understand, is not easy for every company. But that's something you can solve. Yeah. Coming up with a solution that requires 6, 7 steps automated and changing and reconfiguring the environment, yeah, to get that into a way that it doesn't wake the on-call person up every day, that takes dedication, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not fun to get called out every day to fix something that should be automated. And again, any ransomware solution has to come in the priority after regular recovery. Because I guarantee you, you will have regular recovery way more often than you will have ransomware. And even if you have ransomware once, I guarantee you, you will still have more regular recovery.
Yep.
If you get hit multiple times with ransomware, your problem is somewhere else.
Yeah. Change careers.
Change companies because
Yeah.
it's if the environment you work in cannot learn uh, and cannot adapt to a problem, it will not survive for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Once
that's
you're on the
natural
list,
selection.
yeah, once you're on the list, you become a even bigger target that's more widely known,
Oh,
and that's brutal.
and if you paid once, they will attack you like crazy
Yep.
because if they paid once, they're gonna pay again. Yeah,
Yep.
and make sure that your database team is involved in the decisions and the procedures with the security departments or the person. And again, I'm talking departments. Yeah, in most companies, it's probably someone who does it as a side job. Yeah, but thing is, be have the right procedures and know whom do you have to call because you have if you don't report a ransomware attack you might be in actual trouble. So there's lots of industries where if you get hit by ransomware, you by law need to report that. Yeah. So I can guarantee you, if you're in the financial or insurance, you have to tell authorities that you do that. And that might not just be your local or authorities in your own country. That might, if you do international business, you might have to tell authorities that you don't want to talk to.
Yep. Even manufacturing, we've got a couple of shops that they're deemed essential businesses, where during all the shutdowns in 2020, they were required to stay open. One of them got hit by ransomware that we've been aware of just a couple months ago, and yeah, they're working with the feds on investigating all of this stuff, and we're doing a SQL Server migration for one of them just in a couple weekends because the servers came back up after being decrypted, but they don't trust them, so now it's treat them like a SQL Server cutover.
Yeah. No, and it's more and more industries because it doesn't matter if you work in telecommunication, internet service provider, everything that we depend these days, yeah, cloud provider, yeah, IT service provider, anything that if you have a business where other businesses depend on you, there's a high chance that there's a regulation somewhere that requires you to report something like this. Yeah. And I know a friend of mine worked at NASDAQ, they called it Code Blue. And Code Blue is the one you don't want to have. It's the one above, like it's the one level below that was like, oh God, everything went wrong. And Code Blue was everything went wrong, and we're gonna make the front page of the Wall Street Journal tomorrow. That was Code Blue. It was like it's so messed up that we will be the headline tomorrow. So whatever we have to do is it has to work. When the newspaper comes out tomorrow, we already have to have everything ready to reply and be nice again. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, after Code Blue, you need a couple of weeks of therapy. Uh, because it's not fun. Yeah. And no, it's fine. And you need these procedures. It's knowing that you might have the problem and just thinking about it and having a couple of extra steps. Yeah. And as you said, in the other company where they had to go back 3 weeks, going back 3 weeks is much better than going back to never.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, Having an offsite copy of your backups once a month or something. Yeah. And take it on a hard drive and bury it in your backyard. It's still better than nothing. Yeah. Yeah. And renting a temperature controlled storage locker in some my storage thingy, yeah,
No big
costs
deal.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Should you put it in Iron Mountain? Yes. Yeah. But again, that's expensive.
Yep.
Yeah. And honestly, if the ransomware is in combination with an nuclear strike, uh,
We have bigger issues to worry about at that
I,
point.
that's why I always say you work near like a primary target, so you don't have to worry about that. So
If that
y-
happens, I'm gonna go get a tan. It's fine.
yeah, you in an area that is like you live in a place where you might survive.
Right,
Uh,
I'm 60 miles from strike point number two in the U.S. I will end
you're
up with a
that
pretty
thing. I
nice
forgot
tan.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have that
Uh-huh.
little underground facility there.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot
Yeah. No.
about that.
Yeah. I'll end up with a good tan after that. But
Yeah.
that point, whatever.
If a tornado doesn't take you out first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeff, go for it.
Yeah, thanks for hosting Thomas here. Thomas, you mentioned that uh, with two people 24/7 monitoring log shipping, you might be able to detect quickly if you had some sort of ransomware related encryption. Is
yeah.
there Are there any other features, maybe using SQL audit or extended events or anything else that could be used to alert for any kind of encryption?
The, the reason you need two people on site, and this is two people at every given point in time. So you need probably in the US, you need like a team of six, and in Europe, probably a team of 10 to cover that with labor laws. is because there's not just the log shipping monitor. You monitor the log shipping. If the logs can't restore, you only have a few minutes to figure out what's going on before the next log backup happens. Yeah. And as I said, the trick is time. You have to monitor and audit everything you can. Yeah. And this is the part where good monitoring comes in. Yeah. For me, good monitoring means I have no noise. Yeah. But if suddenly the whole thing gets loud, I know something's wrong. Yeah. And why you need people on site is because someone has to react to that. Yeah. If you're on call, so let me walk you through an on-call thing. Yeah. So it's on call. Somehow the page these days, probably a text or email that gets to your mobile phone. You wake up immediately. Yeah. So that's the lucky version. Uh, you see it. You get yourself out of bed. You walk over to your desk. You start your laptop. You VPN in. You connect. If you're lucky, you can still connect. Most likely, if you're not already connected, you might not be able to connect because if I would write the ransomware, I would immediately kill all VPN services first. But that's just me. Um, so then you have to drive into the company to actually get in if you still can connect. If you have someone sitting there 24/7 already be connected, it's much harder to disconnect someone than to prevent someone from connecting. That's why it's 24/7 on site with two people. And the reason you need two people is because Mother Nature requires us to use the bathroom from time to time or eat or sneeze or do something else. Yeah. Just walk around the desk. Yeah. And that's why you need at least two people. The second person must not be a database expert. You could share them like with the network team or with someone else. So what we had in one company, we had something we called Network Operations Center, which had nothing to do with the network. It was just three engineers that were there 24/7, and they covered basically every technical team. And if anything was, they were the first point of contact and they knew enough to wake up the real people they needed and to secure and disconnect. And they could follow emergency procedures very well. Yeah. So that's that. But yes, you have to monitor the whole thing. It's not just about monitoring the log shipping. Yeah. You have to monitor your error logs. You have to monitor, like one very important thing is a simple count star of your number of certificates and number of encryption keys you have on the servers. If that changes for any reason and you're not doing a rollout or something right now, you know something's wrong. Yeah. So there's many things you have to check. Should you audit this and have a look at this? Yes. My problem with audit is it's so noisy. Finding stuff in real time is almost impossible. Yeah. Again, in a small environment, it's all fine. You have like one SQL server and it produces a couple of megabytes of audits per day. I worked in environments where we had 1.5 terabytes of audits per hour. Yeah. You cannot look through that as a human. Yeah. And you cannot look through it with any kind of machine learning or something. Because the problem is, if you run into a problem this thing hasn't seen before, it doesn't understand it. So what happens? You constantly have new cases because you have a new scenario where it constantly reports either something I do not understand it, or most AI software is so stupid that if it doesn't understand it, it just hallucinates an answer and might not notify you anyway. Yeah? So the problem with this monitoring is you need people on site, and these whoever monitors has to have control over the monitoring software so they can tweak it and tweak the thresholds and everything so they get actionable and meaningful alerts what's going on. Yeah. And it's very likely that you will get the alert that there's ransomware from some other team before you notice it on SQL Server. Yeah, because again, for SQL Server to make if you have the version that you reboot SQL Server and comes up and the data is encrypted, okay, you notice. Yeah, but how often do you reboot SQL Server? Yeah. Uh, Unfortunately, if you follow the guidelines, once every about 6 weeks when you patch the next CU. So again, a question is, if you want to protect yourself from ransomware, would you install each and every patch? No. Uh, it's just I have SQL servers that started running in 2008 and they've never stopped since then. Yeah, they run beta version of SQL 2008. Still runs. No reason to take it offline. It does its job, and it will probably do so for another couple of decades. Did we get lucky that we never lost power? Yes. Do we know that? Yes. Do we care? No. It's one machine in an array of 8. The other 7 are modern machines. It's just one that just keeps running. It's more like a experiment. But that thing is still the fastest of the 8, which is hilarious. Uh,
Hey,
uh,
quick follow-up on that, what you said there. Did you say you don't apply or recommend applying all the updates when they come out for like the security
no.
updates? Because Microsoft has been like really heavy with monthly security updates
Yes,
because of
and
the restart.
so okay, we should stop the recording. Uh,
Not trying to trap you there. I was just asking for some
no,
clarification or
I'll
not.
give you
Hold,
the
hold,
answer,
hold
but
on,
I don't
hold,
want it
hold
on the
on,
recording.
hold on one second. Thank you, everybody, for watching. If you are watching this and are really interested about the answer to this question, feel free to contact TG separately for an offline discussion.
Yes.
Otherwise, thank you for attending, and we'll see you at the next one.